Hi everyone. So we have already discussed about creating our developer edition. So I initially discussed and I gave a small activity for everyone to create the developer edition and try and explore the user interface that comes up once you log in into your Salesforce account. Right. So let's quickly try to do the same. Let's see how does it look. This is how the interface is gonna more or less look. You will have your uh, user interface for Salesforce, looks something similar to this. Maybe you initially, once you log in, you may land up into a different page, but overall, possibly it's gonna look something similar to this. All right. So let's quickly understand what are the different components here, and then we will start understanding what do we do where and all that stuff. All right. So a few key things which you need to be aware of or which you should be familiar with are this button here. If you click on it, it basically shows your name and it gives you the option to sign out, etc. And also this gives you an option to uh, switch to Salesforce Classic. So Salesforce Classic is the user interface which was used earlier by Salesforce. It's the old user interface, and Lightning is the new user interface. All right. So now if you click on switch to Salesforce Classic, if you will see that it will take you to a slightly different user interface which looks a little dated. And again, on the Salesforce Classic, now we are on the Salesforce Classic user interface. If you notice this section, the top right section corner of it, it is slightly looking different from what we saw for the Lightning version, right? Now if you again go back to if you want to again go back to Lightning experience, simply come to switch to Lightning experience, click on this button, and it will take you back to the Lightning experience. So if you see, overall this interface is slightly looking different as compared to uh, what we saw for the Classic. All right. Okay. And then you have on the top right corner, the second one here is basically this here is the icon which will take you to the help. Oh no, sorry, this is notifications. This is help icon, and this is the usual setup icon. All right. So most frequently you will be using the setup icon. This is an important icon that we will use very frequently. And let me show you what do we get once we click on the setup icon. So the moment you click on setup icon, it opens up the setup menu. There is a generic setup menu that you see, the first one, and after that you would also see data cloud setup, service setup, uh, and developer console, etc. You don't need to be worried about everything else for now. You can simply click on the first setup icon, and then it will, you would notice that on the left side it is going to open a complete setup menu for you, right? So if you see in the left side, there is this full setup menu that opens up, and here there is a quick find box. You can search for some specific setup and you can do those setup changes from here, right? Now in this setup menu is primarily meant for this setup menu is primarily meant for all sort of setup changes. If you want to add apps, if you want to create pages, if you want to control assignments, if you want to go see the list of users, etc., everything is going to be available in this setup menu. So any setup changes, etc., be it the role of an administrator, developer, whatever we do, we usually do it from the setup menu. All right. So that is the setup menu. We will look into it. So if you scroll down a little, you will see user related information is here. The profiles, permission sets, queues, roles, everything is here, right? Development related stuff is here. Environments are listed here. Your integrations, enablement, everything. So yeah, your company setup is here. Company settings is here. So everything is listed in the setup menu. All right. So this is going to be a very important menu for us for making any changes or for customizing, configuring anything in on the standard out of the box app that we have received. All right. Okay, so this is how it looks at a high level. We will just keep it here now. Yeah. Now what we are going to do is we are going to start with personalizing this CRM or the account, the developer edition that you got. We would start with personalizing this a little. Now, what is this personalizing concept? The concept of personalization is basically very similar to what we I think not here. We are yeah. Okay. So the concept of personalize your CRM, basically, think of it when you get now if you look into your developer edition, this seems like a new platform or a new app that you have just got into, right? Now think of it, let's say you have got a new phone. What do? First of all, you would go and set up a few things. You would set up your personal preferences, etc., the language that you want on your keyboard, maybe your time zone, etc. So those are the things that you set up right at the beginning. Similar thing we can do for our CRM. We can set up those personal settings, like which time zone, which language, which currency, etc. So that's something which we can do. So first thing that an administrator should ideally do is he should go and set it up as per the time zone, currencies, language, etc., for the overall organization as well as for individuals, right? So in case there are users who are who are from different time zones, or who use different languages, then for them again, settings need to be done that way. All right. So in Salesforce there are two options or two types of personalization settings that I would say we have. uh, One is personal settings. Okay. This is user specific. Personal settings are user specific. So for example, if I want my language to be English, that is a personal setting. And then there are admin settings or administrative settings, which is org specific, right? So what will happen in Salesforce, you will have an org, let's say a company, and then under the org you can have users, let's say user 1, then user 2, then user 3, and then user 4, right? So now if I have multiple users in the org, and now if these two users are going to use English as a language, and these two users are going to use French as a language, all right? So that's a personal user level setting, right? But at an org level, let's say at an org level, we want to use English as a language. Okay. So the administrator can do the personalization settings for the org as well as individuals, and individuals can, or the personal settings can be then changed by the individual users as well. So I can basically go and change my personalization settings, but at an org level it has to be always the administrator who will be doing that, the Salesforce administrator. All right. So this is how it would work. So the org level setting is the default setting. For example, the language is set up as English, that would become the default language for everyone, and individuals can basically then go and change that to their preferred language. All right. So that's how it's going to work. So personal settings, user can set their own personal customization, and personal settings are visible only to the user who sets them up. So personal settings are done by the individual users. Admin settings are can are the changes for the entire org, for your entire Salesforce org. Okay. And these are org wide settings, and they impact all users, right? However, individual users can always go and make those changes, or they can use those settings for their they can change the settings as per their personal requirements. For example, language can be changed, all right, or a time zone can be changed. right? So that is the thing. Now let's quickly see where, so first of all, let's understand what are the options available, and then we will go and see in Salesforce where exactly we can make those changes. So for us to make these changes, first of all, quickly let's understand what personalization settings we will be able to make here. So first we will be setting up language, very common, right? So you may have users who want to use Salesforce in different languages, and you may want to set up a generic org corporate language or org level language for your company, so that you can set up. All right, then there is time zone. Again, same thing applies for time zone. You can have a generic standard time zone that is used mostly in your company, but again, different users, let's say you have set a specific time zone for your company in general, but then you have users from different other locations, let's say lesser or a smaller number of users, they can personally go and set up their time zone to something else. All right, then there is currency, of course, because there will be revenue related information in Salesforce. So currency will be required. So whether you're selling in US dollars, Canadian dollars, you're selling in British pounds, so whatever, so that currency needs to be set up. Now, there are companies which would be also selling in different countries. So in that case, Salesforce also gives us the option to set up multiple currencies, right? So when we set up multiple currency, for example, there's a company which is selling in multiple currencies. Let's say they sell in US dollars, and then they sell in UAE dirhams, and then they also sell in British pounds, right? So if there are multiple currencies, in that case, what needs to happen, see, while you want to sell in multiple currencies, but at the end of the day, uh, there has to be reporting, forecast, etc., analysis that needs to be done. You cannot have different numbers use that case, right? So everything needs to be then standardized into something, right? So when you use multiple currency, then what you have to also do, you will have to set up a corporate currency. Let's say US dollar is the corporate currency. Then other currencies, you would define a conversion rate for other currencies. That will be a configuration that you would do. So a generic conversion rate you would set up for the other currency, so that it can convert it to the corporate currency. All right, and then what would happen, whenever you are entering an amount in a different currency, it will also have a value stored for the corporate currency, right? So that ways, for all reporting purpose, the corporate currency value will be used, right? Because you cannot compare apples to oranges, right? So even if some deals are in different currencies, eventually everything needs to be converted to the corporate currency, and overall reporting, etc., would happen in the corporate currency. So that's how it works. All right, so currency, we can definitely define multiple currencies, and it's a very straightforward customization option which is available. The only thing that needs to be kept in mind is, while we are defining the multiple currencies, we also need to define the which is the corporate currency, and we need to define the conversion rates, so that reporting can happen properly using the corporate currency. Okay, the other thing that needs to be defined, or that can be defined, is the fiscal year. So fiscal year is important because most of the Salesforce has revenue information, and a lot of reporting generally gets done from Salesforce, right? So when we are doing reporting happens mostly on financial year. Fiscal year is the financial year. So the reportings, if you are aware, or if you would have seen, usually companies prefer to do reporting using the fiscal years, fiscal quarters, etc., right? So if my financial year is, say, 25-26 financial year, I may want to do my reporting using the financial year. Now the financial year may start from April 25 and may go till March 26, right? Okay, so now if the financial year reporting is happening, uh, if you define the financial year, then what happens is you can basically generate your report based on these financial years, right? You don't have to generate a report always on the usual calendar year, January to December. If you have defined your fiscal year, your reporting, the time for reporting can be defined as current financial year, last financial year. So if Salesforce knows what is the financial year structure that you're following, you can build your or create your reports accordingly, right? So you can say next financial year forecast, last financial year, revenue generated this financial year. Automatically the dates will be adjusted as per the financial year which has been defined. All right, instead of always going and putting, I want a report from 1st April till 31st March, etc. You can just use reference to the financial year. Then there are business hours. Business hours are basically the time when your support team is available. Now business hours and holidays, these two concepts are primarily related to the customer support teams. All right, so usually we would understand that customer support team works on cases from the customers, and most of the times those cases do have a TAT, a turnaround time, or service level agreement sort of a thing, right? So the thing is, let's say if I have committed my customers that whenever there is a case, I would respond back within 24 hours of receiving the case, right? So usually these 24 hours or 16 hours or 15 hours are working hours, right? So in case I have specific working hours, let's say my team is working only from 9 till 6, then I would define that here in the business hours. Now, what will happen? This will be used as a reference for calculation of how many working hours have already passed since that case was raised by the customer. Right. So, for example, if my team is working only from 9 till 6, then I should not be, uh, you know, counting the hours beyond this, right? So if my team is available 9 to 6, then, and if I have to respond back to a customer in 12 hours, so those 12 hours should be counted between this 9 to 6. All right, now if there is a customer who raises a case at 7 p.m., it should not escalate next day morning at 7 a.m. after 12 hours, because till the time the team has not even seen that case, right? So it will then, make your overall system inconsistent, right? So for that you need to define business hours. Now business hours are then basically used as a reference for all sort of uh, calculations for these hours. All right, and then holidays also, you can define your holidays in the CRM tool. Now the purpose is same. Holidays are the days when your customer support team is not available. So for example, if your business hours are 9 to 6, but there will be days when your support team is not available, let's say Christmas day, the support team is not going to be available, then you will have to mark it as a holiday in the CRM, so that those days, you know the time for those days is not considered while calculating for the overall resolution time, or the time in queue of the case. The holidays are not considered for that. All right, so that is the thing. Now let's quickly, so we have understood the key things that we would define to personalize our CRM, the initial setup. Now let's quickly have a look at where do we actually go and do these setup changes. Let me quickly go to Salesforce and do that. Okay. All right, so for these personalization changes, first thing we'll have to go to setup. The main setup, and then under setup we will go to company settings. You can simply search for it in the quick find box, or you can scroll down and you will find this. And if you come to the company settings, you would see that there are these things which you can now set up, right? key things here are, you can set up your fiscal year. You have the option to set up fiscal year, holidays, the generic company information, your business hours, right? Language settings. So all these things can be set up from here. All right. Let's try to do that. Let's look into company information. Yeah, so if I go to company information, it will show me the basic details about the company information, which includes a lot of stuff, right? Your org name, your org's unique ID. So every organization that is created, or every org which is created, you created a developer edition org, right? So every org that is created will have a unique ID. Okay, and this is the ID of your org. Okay, then some specific information that, okay, fine, how much data you have used, how much file space you have used. I discussed about it earlier.